So we started drawing the diagram here. So this is the roof of the nasal cavity. So these are anterior nares you are seeing here. So through nostrils or anterior nares it enters into the nasal cavity. So nasal cavity is separated from the oral cavity by hard palate. So this hard palate posteriorly it is connected to soft palate. So now you can see that partition which has been made between the nasal cavity and then the oral cavity. So oral cavity, we just discussed that the main content is tongue. So here I will just write the mandible, so which is nothing but the bone of the lower jaw. So that is mandible. So this mandible, it gives attachment to tongue. So this is the location of the tongue in the oral cavity. So above it is separated from the nasal cavity by the hard palate and then the soft palate. So below it is, you can see its location in the oral cavity. So now here, so below the mandible in the neck you will see the bone. So that is nothing but hyoid bone. Okay. So and then this is laryngeal prominence. The laryngeal prominence is formed by the thyroid cartilage. So these are the two. This is the angulation of the thyroid cartilage which is producing the laryngeal prominence. So this is the cut section of the thyroid cartilage. So below the thyroid cartilage there will be small cricoid cartilage. So this is the small anterior portion of the cricoid cartilage is called as the arch of the cricoid cartilage. So behind, so this cricoid cartilage, it gets enlarged to form the this is the arch of the cricoid cartilage and this is the lamina of the cricoid cartilage. So this is the lamina of the cricoid cartilage behind. This is the bigger portion. So this is the lower border of the cricoid cartilage. So where the larynx will become the trachea and then the pharynx will become the esophagus. So now this is thyroid cartilage I said. So here above the thyroid cartilage you will see one more unpaired cartilage of larynx. So that is nothing but your epiglottis. So tongue is connected posteriorly to the epiglottis. So through 3 folds of mucous membrane. So these folds whatever I am writing here between the tongue and then the epiglottis. So this is nothing but your glossoepiglottic fold. This is nothing but your glossoepiglottic fold. Okay. So now this is epiglottis. Then here, so this is the cricoid cartilage and now here, so above the cricoid cartilage you will see a small pyramidal shaped cartilage of larynx here. So that is nothing but arytenoid cartilage and below that 2 small nodular cartilages will be there. So that will be called as carniculate and cuneiform cartilages. Okay. So the tongue, it is anteriorly so attached to the mandible. So that is along the floor of the mouth. Along the floor of the mouth you can see anteriorly it is attached to the mandible and one second. So anteriorly it is attached to the mandible. So and then posteriorly it is attached to epiglottis. And then here, these are the cartilages of the larynx. How it is connected to the cartilages of the larynx you have seen here. So that is to the epiglottis you have seen here. So at the same time there is an extension from here. So from its attachment to the mandible to the hyoid bone. So from its attachment to the mandible to the hyoid bone you can see the extension. So this I can call it as the attached margin of the tongue. Attached margin of the tongue, I can call this as the root of the tongue. So this is the root of the tongue. So this is the tip of the tongue, the free anterior end, and posterior broad end is called as the base, and now this is attached to the anterior surface of the epiglottis through glossoepiglottic fold. Glossoepiglottic fold. So now these are the parts of the tongue. The tip, so this is the root of the tongue where it is attached to mandible as well as the hyoid bone, and now this is the broad posterior portion of the tongue which is called the base. So that is attached to the anterior surface of the epiglottis. Okay, so now this surface whatever you are seeing above which is coming in contact with the hard palate and soft palate which is separating it from the roof of the oral cavity. So which is nothing but here the palate. Okay, so this surface is otherwise called as the palatal surface or this is otherwise called as the dorsal surface of the tongue. This is otherwise called as dorsal surface of the tongue. You can see here from the tip towards the mandible you are seeing this. So this small portion of the tongue, so this small surface of the tongue, this is otherwise called as ventral surface of the tongue. Ventral surface of the tongue, this large dorsal surface of the tongue, anterior end tip, it is free, posterior end base. Now posterior end is attached to the anterior surface of the epiglottis through glossoepiglottic folds. Now here this is the root of the tongue, so which is nothing but the attachment of the tongue to the mandible, so and then the hyoid bone. So this is the location and then the parts of the tongue. Now once we have learnt the parts of the tongue, so I said anteriorly the tip, it is getting attached to the, yes, along the ventral surface it is getting attached to the mandible. So this fold of mucous membrane through which the ventral surface is attached to the mandible, this will be called as the frenulum linguae. Frenulum linguae. Now let us study the features of ventral surface of the tongue and then the broad dorsal surface of the tongue separately.